I'm Rosemary Maloney, Senior Manager of Global Travel, Expense, and Card at Alteryx, and I'm here at Raffles Center in Singapore at the GBTA 2024 APAC Conference Broadcast Studio. Joining me today is Varun Mehra, Regional Lead, Asia Pacific CWT Solutions Group. Hi Varun, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me, Rosemary.
Of course.
How are you?
I'm great. Let's get started. The continuous change and transformation occurring in the business travel industry can pose challenges in maintaining best-in-class programs, with lack of resources or capacity to dedicate to travel management. As a result, outsourcing some or all of travel management responsibilities has become a trend in recent years. How are you seeing this play out in the APAC region?
Yeah, sure. I think we are discussing this in the GBTA conference, since yesterday as well. Outsourced travel manager, I think the role varies based on the organization needs, right? And as they say, no one size fits all. We are seeing a lot of traction and benefit through, on the outsourced travel management side. Some of the key benefits that we really identified is to start with first, I would say, for an organization, when you don't have that industry expertise in-house, or you don't have enough bandwidth, I think that's where it can really benefit to have an outsourced travel manager. I think the second layer is definitely the cost, right? A typical outsourced travel manager comes with an FTE, which you can bundle up roles, 2 or 3 roles in one FTE, and it can help you save the overhead cost in the entire travel department for yourself. But I would say the trend has been a little different if we see from what's happening in other regions in North America or in Europe versus what's happening in APAC. In APAC, we've seen more traction towards more product or process-specific requirements rather than having a complete outsourced travel manager, right? So to give you an example, we would have requests or demands in this region around having a travel specialist, which can support you, for example, on specific tasks like OBD implementation or invoice management, things like that. We also see demand of travel specialists to manage more day-to-day operational activities where they can support the in-house travel manager who drives the strategic program forward. So I think that's kind of the basic nuance in terms of how this region is really different than North America and Europe.
No, that's so great to hear, and it's interesting to hear how the different regions manage it differently with the outsourcing. Earlier this year, Singapore announced that it will require all flights departing from its airports to use sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, starting in 2026. With other countries in the APAC region contemplating similar mandates, how should companies be thinking about adapting their travel programs in view of these changes?
Yeah, that's a good one. Sustainability have been spoken about, I think, about 300 times if we put a count in this conference. But I think it has really a key role to play. Based on IATA estimates, I think about 65%, SAF can account for about 65% reduction in emissions. So I'd say it's important for sure, right? We've heard about green flight taxes or, SAF levies around the world. That's slowly coming up with countries around the world kind of just mandating that. I'd say what travel managers needs to keep in mind are 4 or 5 things. First, have a consideration of your long-term sustainability goal, right? You got to go back, review with your internal stakeholders and your sustainability team to understand what's the organization's long-term goal. You might be fulfilling the short-term requirements or regulations, but then they might not be good enough to take you long. I think whatever action you take, it's for long-term, right? So I think that's the first. Second is understand your travel footprint and review your policy, because you need to understand where you're traveling, which locations, because like for example, Singapore, they would levy a tax in 2026, right? So you need to understand which locations you're traveling and are there any regulations around it. To complement that, understand which airlines, for example, you're flying with, what's their SAF program looks like and how they can support you. So all of this would have an implication on your policy as well as the cost. I think the other layer is just like any other change management, you have to bring your internal stakeholders on board. Talk to your executive leaders, talk to your sustainability leaders, talk to your procurement leader if that's not in your remit. You need to bring them all together, and more so your travelers, because in the end, travel is very personal to everyone. So you need to bring on board your travelers to really let them know that what this change means for them, right? Scope, I think this SAF and sustainability and all the measures, it falls under scope 3.6 generally for the organizations, right? So you need to engage with your suppliers. You cannot do it in isolation.
Yeah.
Engage with your hotel suppliers, engage with your airline suppliers, engage with your ground transport. Again, that's also one missing piece that we generally don't talk about. Engage with your suppliers and see what, how you can just move forward, because there's such an evolving space. Last but not the least, I think the very important thing that we probably forget is stay informed. It's coming fast. It's changing rapidly. You need to be abreast with it, because within your organization, you are the point of contact for anything travel. So you need to be abreast with what's happening there, stay informed, because it'll impact your policy, it'll impact your cost. So I think it's kind of just the mix of this, balancing this. I call it cubes if you do the acronyms of it.
Okay.
It's like Rubik's Cube, right?
Yep.
So just kind of help you just solve that and everything would be done.
Yeah,
it doesn't
easy peasy.
easy.
You just have to do it in
Just solve the Rubik's
90
Cube.
seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And align with that, with going to the future and various Rubik's Cubes. Work culture has changed considerably in recent years with remote and hybrid work models and employee health and well-being being prioritized. How is this impacting corporate travel programs, especially when it comes to changes in companies' travel patterns? And how are companies approaching and measuring employee well-being beyond just duty of care when it comes to business travel?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? And off late, we've really had those important conversations with a lot of our clients as well, in terms of what it looks like from an employee well-being perspective. I think to start with, it's about culture and engagement. Coming out of COVID, we had a lot of dependency now on virtual meetings and those tools. I think the clear impact is on the engagement with your employees. And I think too much reliance on these tools also would impact employee productivity. So because of that, what we're seeing is there's a healthy demand for internal meetings right now, which we thought would go away, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're seeing a healthy demand for internal meetings. I think we need to also take into consideration that we need to equip the travelers with the right tools. So for example, at CWT, what we're doing is there's a feature that's called Share Your Trip. So, share your trip details with the employees who would be there joining on the trip. And any change that you make, it's real time. All your colleagues would be informed about it. So that you can probably end up on the same plane or at the same hotel, and you can spend those, meaningful face time together, right? I think culture and engagement, after that, I think from an organization perspective, there was a lot of focus on tax implications, because with work from anywhere or work remotely, organizations could end up having fines and all those tax implications with people moving around.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you need to be mindful of that. Again, probably similar example I can think of from our experience at CWT. We work with a global partner who works on the business travel compliance management. And for the organization that subscribe to it, we just share the travel data. So, they know what could be potential tax implications, if any. So that could be helpful, just again, working with the partners, right? One APAC specific, I would say, trend that we saw is change in office locations. Right? We saw, specifically in India, we saw a lot of offices opening in tier 2 and tier 3 locations, just because during COVID, people went back to their hometowns working remotely.
Yep.
And then with lockdowns being lifted, people are not that willing to come back to the main cities, just because it's also higher cost of living, right? So I think that's because as a result of that trend, we've seen a lot of offices opening in tier 2 and tier 3. If you think from an organization perspective, it kind of gives you a larger market for an employee base now. But from a travel manager perspective, I think it clearly impacts your travel footprint, right? Now you're not flying into the New Yorks, the Singapores, or the Londons of the world. You're going to have a lot more travel towards your tier 2, tier 3 cities or coming out of it. And that'll impact how you negotiate with your hotels, how you negotiate with your airlines. So that's kind of the clear impact. And I think while the last part of the question was around well-being, that's such a big focus right now, right? It's like how a travel or traveling on a weekday impacts you, or traveling on a weekend, taking time away from your family. Now we have travel programs making choices of their hotels based on, do we have gym or fitness centers on site? Even the meal allowance, is it good enough so that they can have healthy meal options, which I don't know why, but could be expensive, right? Vegan. So I think that's where the consideration is. Calculating well-being, unlike cost and carbon, is difficult right now, right? And again, we at CWT Solution Group, which is the consulting arm, what we did is we built this traveler well-being index, which is, you can say, taking a numerical approach in evaluating your business trips and really scoring each your business trips on different well-being KPIs to give you that score. And as a result, what we've seen is, we've seen organizations making those small tweaks to their travel policy on the go and really help your, just know your travelers better and kind of just make those changes overall.
Oh, well, that's so great. And everything you said was so thought-provoking. Thank you. Varun, again, thank you for being here today at the 2024 APAC Conference Broadcast Studio in Singapore. Thanks for watching.